And they have developed few tools that might be interesting for you to maybe learn some experience for your own open budget tool strategies and also data visualization good practices. So without further ado, Wagner, I'm giving the floor to you.
Okay, hello everybody. Can everybody listen to me okay? It's fine. Nika, it's working okay?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so as Nika said, I'm calling from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and we here at the development, the Public Policy Analysis Department in a think tank called Fundação Getulio Vargas, and we are developing some tools for making the visualization of public budget data more friendly to people so that people can really use it for research and for getting information about what the government is spending money. And so we try to do this in a way that people can really have access to information in a friendly way. I will just start the presentation showing you how it worked before I had this kind of tools. Like, for example, if a public worker wanted to insert public budget data in a big platform called SIAFI, they would see something like this. I will start sharing my screen here. They would see something like this. Okay, I'm just showing you like a kind of system that they use to get public budget data. You can see that it's really old-fashioned, to say the minimum. But that was the way that people used to get public budget data, and it was really hard to use this tool because you have to learn a little bit of programming, and it was really hard for common people to use this kind of tool. But then it developed because we had some new tools for getting public data, like made by the government. When you had something like this, which was a little bit better, but still you had to learn how to use it and to search in this menu here where you can find public budget on a specific topic, and it was not something for everybody. So what we try to do is to create better tools for visualizing open budget. So I'm showing you now our website. I will just be sorry about it because it's in Portuguese, but our English website here is not really up to date. So I will show you how it works. If you have any doubts, you can ask me later. But this is our website, and we have here a little part here about tools. I'm just clicking on tools here, and you have transparency. So we have a big area of transparency here with three main tools that we use to look for the public budget. So the first one that I'll show you is called the Budgetary Mosaic, which is this one. Okay, so this is what we call the Budgetary Mosaic. What we have here is a distribution of the public budget in what we call functions. Well, functions will say is how this money is employed, not necessarily where it is employed, but with what reason, we would say. So we have here, for example, education. So we can know in 2015 how much money the government spent on education, for example, it is here. And we can have like a notion of proportion, like what is the percentage of education in the total budget? We have this information there. We can look for any of these little boxes here. We'll have information about how much money is employed on these topics. So to start is really friendly, and you can, like, for example, what is inside education, and you can click on it, and I'll have just the mosaic for education. So we'll have, like, for example, how much money is spent on superior education, called universities and everything, and I'll click on that, and now I have the budget. For example, this one here, okay, I can understand, for example, how much money is spent on incentives, on grants for students, for example. We'll have it here. But I can also look by not just like how the money is employed, but where the money is employed. And here I have the distribution of the budget by ministry. So I have, again, the Ministry of Education, for example, the Ministry of Health, and I'll have like this distribution here. Another cool things that I can, like, you may be asking why there are different colors. Well, the colors will say how much of the money that ministry, for example, they started the year with a planned budget to spend during the year, but they not necessarily paid everything. So we can have a notion of how much of its budget was really paid on that year. When you have the blue boxes, it means that that ministry is spending like the majority of its budget. When you have it like red, you have like a little part of this budget is really spent during the year, which means that probably it's not this area is not a priority for the government. So it can have a notion of, we called it the percentage of execution of the expenses. Here you can download in CSV and everything. Then we have a notion of the evolution during time. For example, as I selected here, education, for example, I will have a graph of the evolution of the spending on education in the public budget in Brazil, and I'll have it like discounted by inflation, for example. And then in the end, if I really want to look at data, at raw data, we'll say we have this table here, so you can like download this table. Well, as I do not have a lot of time, I will show you the other two tools that we have. The second one, we call it geology, and you will understand right now why we call it geology, because it looks a little bit like a rock or something inside the earth. So here we have the distribution of the public government budget during time, in what we call the groups of expenses nature. For example, if I want to know how much money in the government spend on investments, I will have to look at the first like red bar in the beginning of this graph. You have a notion of how much investment money is spent. If I want to know how much money is spent on salaries for public workers, I'll have to look at the green one. And then we have a lot of options here. We can also look for how much debt the government is paying. If we look for the purple one here. So we have this kind of notion. And then I can look at this same information by what we call organ, or by institutional division. For example, if I want to know how much money the Ministry of Education is spending looking at this kind of groups like investments and debt and everything, I will click here, and I'll have this notion during the time. And there's a lot of design working here. As you can see, we can like, the numbers are changing here as I pass the mouse here, mouse over. And then I can also compare different functions. For example, I can select 3 functions here, and I can see how it developed during the years and how it is distributed during this between these groups. Well, this is the geology, and the third one is we'll call the transfer, or federative transfer. Well, in Brazil we have a division in states, a little bit like the United States. Here's a little map of Brazil, and each one of these divisions is a federal state. And I can know how much money the central government or the federal government sent to each state in a year. For example, here we have the year of 2015. If I click on one state, like São Paulo, for example, I will have this distribution here, which is how much money was sent from the federal state to the state of São Paulo, distributed in some groups. We have here general services of public administration, economic development, social policy, and everything. Is it okay? So if I want to understand, for example, how much money was sent by social policies, I have to click on social policies, and I have health, education, and sports and leisure. Then I can click on health, and I will know that all the money sent, or almost all the money sent to the state of São Paulo in the health, was sent by a fund. So I can understand, for example, what is this fund for. There is also a nice thing to know here, which is not everybody knows that, but Brazil is recently tackling a fiscal issue, which is like government spending has risen in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, and the government has to cut spending, and there is a lot of debate on where it should cut. In Brazil, in the public budget in Brazil, we have a division between what we call, what we'll say, like there are some kind of expenses that are there are legal restrictions for that kind of expenses, like the government really has to make that expenses, for example, paying salaries to public workers, otherwise we will have legal problems. This kind of expenses what we call compulsory expenses. And there's a lot of another kind of expenses which we call discretionary, which is the kind of expenses that the government really can cut without having legal problems. With this division, we can have a better notion of how the fiscal spending, the budget spending, the cutting on the public budget can really happen. So if I click here on this little button, I will have just the expenses that the public sector really can cut. So then I'll have a different composition of the budget. As you can see in the first one, we have this big box here. Just show this box here is the spending in paying like benefits, for example, for older people, and retiring, for example. This big box is this kind of spending. When I put it on the spending that the government really can cut, I do not have it anymore. I do not have this kind of spending here, because this is exactly the kind of spending that the government can't cut. So if people really want to understand better how the government can cut spending and really promote this fiscal arrangement, we can look at here and to know where are the areas of the government that will suffer the most. So we have education, we have health, we have, for example, this here, which is infrastructure, housing and everything, transports, science and technology, innovation. So these are the big areas for the resources that are really possible to have cuts on the next year. So this is the kind of analysis that we can make using this kind of tool. I'm really sorry of not being able to show you in English, but I hope I could explain a little bit. If you have any other doubts, you can ask me, no problem. I'm also sorry for a little bit of accent, maybe of Brazilian accent. And I would just stop sharing the tool here. Okay, that's perfect. So that was it. I'm really here for questions and answers and everything. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Wagner. Really interesting solutions for visualizing open budget. And my first question is, how did you get the budget data open? Yeah, because Brazil is one of the, well, not really the newest democracies, but still with some kind of history of dictatorship. So how you make this data open, and how much can we rely on this data?
Okay, that's a really good question. Well, we really had a recent history of not having transparency, but we had two things that happened in the recent 20 years that changed it a little bit. The first thing is a law that was on the Congress, and now it's really it's already working, which is we call here the Law of Accessory Information, which is like the public institutions really they have a legal responsibility of showing off data and everything. This is not necessarily effective, but it worked really nice with public budget data because they really gave access to people for public budget information. But as I showed you before in the beginning of the presentation, they showed information in a not friendly way that people would not understand data. The data is there, but people would not understand it. So it was like everybody started to say that Brazil was a reference in transparency, but because it opened the access to data, but that doesn't mean a lot. So we started to think a little bit of how people can really apprehend this knowledge of public budget and everything. Today, Brazil is ranked on 6th on the Open Budget Index. We have already ameliorated on that. But the thing is, the access to data is not really difficult, not really the problem. The problem was how to show it. So we could propose these solutions. About the reliability of data, we really had some big problems with that because we had 3 different sources of public budget information, which is the Ministry of Planning, the Ministry of Economy, and the Federal Senate. And not necessarily the data was the same on these 3 sources. So we really had a big work of interviewing people and understanding a little bit how it really worked, and start crossing data and asking why it was not like that and was not like this and everything. And finally, today we had already accumulated expertise on that. So somebody said the audio went out. Do you hear me?
I do hear you. Okay, so I think Jose also made thumbs up. Is it thumbs up? Thumbs up, Jose?
Yeah, it's just that we had some problems, but we had already corrected this, interviewing people and crossing different data banks.
Okay, okay, Jose, can you unmute yourself? I bet you have some questions being Brazilian on open budget in Brazil.
He lost audio.
Yeah. Okay, so Jose will ask.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you at all. Nothing. But I'm going to write my question on the chat if you can hear me.
Okay, perfect. So Jose will write his question down. Meanwhile,
Okay,
let me
no problem.
ask you, how did you make design decisions on how to best visualize the open budget data you had? Because I think it was quite simple way to explore it. How you made the decision on design?
Okay. First of all, we had a partnership with Open Knowledge Foundation, and the basics of the Budgetary Mosaic and the transfers tool is entirely based in a model which was already prepared for Open Knowledge Foundation. And since we had this partnership, we adapted it for our demands here. But we already found a big reservoir of data visualization with this partnership. So we didn't have a lot of problems. We just had to adapt here to some situations. For example, the colors that as I showed you before, the colors that represent the percentage of execution of the expenses. This was something that we thought it here inside. But we have here in our office here, we have what we call a transdisciplinary team. because we have like statisticians working, and we have like mathematicians working, we have programmers, and we have web designers also. So these web designers, they work with us since the conception of our projects. We never start a project without having a designer working since the beginning, so that like we can think about with something which is really nice to show people and enhance transparency, but we also have a designer think about how can we show this to people. So that's how we came to some new tools. I would just have like this will be really fast. It's just to show you an example of a thing we've created inside here, which is, for example, this one here. I'll just show you. We have a tool here in our department, which is designed for football. So if people want to know how its team is being mentioned on social networks, for example, we have a tool just for that. Is this tool that I'm showing right now. It's like loading, I don't know what's happening. But we have a big design working here. Because, for example, here is what you're saying now is the Twitter mentions to football teams, and then you can see like what is the best mentioned team in social network. You can see like where is your team ranking. You can see what people are saying in the stadiums during the matches. And we can also have some information on transparency, for example, how much money they are getting in each match and everything, how much of that is becoming really profitable to the teams. So all this that I'm showing you right now was created inside here by web designers and everything. This is the kind of work we do here with data visualization, but not for transparency, for other topics as well. So asking your question, we have web designers working since the beginning of the project. That's the thing.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Okay, so Jose, is your sound back?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. So this data of open budget, how affects your neighbor's country? I'm in the north side of Brazil, in Venezuela. So we have a lot of business with Brazil government and Brazil enterprises, as you might know. Odebrecht, which is investigated for some corruptions business. So we have a strong presence of Odebrecht here in Venezuela. So how this data can be used by us, for example?
Well, I see you asked a little bit about corruption. We are having problems with corruption here concerning state enterprises, which is a big focus of corruption. But we still don't have data for this kind of public enterprises. For example, if we wanted to detect corruption using the public budget of the state enterprises, we should have like their balance sheets and everything, and this we still don't have. We're like demanding this kind of thing because Brazilian society is demanding this kind of thing. About how people in other countries can use it to analyze, like, it's a little bit difficult to detect corruption just looking for the public budget data, because we just have a notion of how it is distributed among the public budget. But I'll give you an example of how some people have already detected problems concerning not necessarily corruption, but it is what we call here the creative accountability, which is, for example, a person that detected that there was a specific program in the public spending that they were like relying. There was some money that was to be spent in a year and was never spent on that year. There was always they they would not make their expenses on that year. They would plan it for the next year, and then you arrive next year, they will not make their expenses again. And there were like people waiting for the new investment on everything because it had already started, and we could detect it with public budget because we have that information of the percentage of execution, and the people were looking at that, why there's just like 10% of all the public money on this specific program that is not being spent. What's happening? And people started asking, and finally we discovered that really they were saying that they were spending money on that program, but they were not really spending, and that became a little bit of a problem here. Because like these things, they usually mess up with political interests. So we have to take care sometimes with these things. But like detecting corruption is something difficult, but I think the public budget can maybe help to find some little restrictions on that.
Well, I'm going to close my comments over here. I would love to chat with you in order to see if we can do some investigation together. Because in Brazil it should be like Venezuela. They should tell you, okay, I want to build a refinery, and we are building a refinery together, the Jose de Lima refinery. So in Venezuela, it just said we are going to spend $20 million on that, and the refinery is not built yet. So that's kind of things we are looking for in the open budget. So if you like, I would love to chat with you on private on that. Okay?
Oh, that's perfect. We can do that.
Perfect.
Okay.
I see wonderful synergy between Brazil and Venezuela here. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
On the borders.
Exactly. We are running out of time here, so I think it was very insightful and inspiring presentation by Wagner, and I hope that you and Jose will continue to collaborate on investigations. Just one last question from my side. Have you seen the public engagement into this data that actually triggered some investigations or some public interest that made social impact? So did your visualization of open budget actually did some social impact?
I'll give you this answer with an example that happened today. There was a newspaper here in Brazil, which is really big. It's called Folha de São Paulo. Right now we are in the process of administrative reform here. Like the government is proposing a little change in the ministries. Like this ministry is not going to exist anymore, and this ministry here, I want to change the person who is ruling it. We are like in this process, and there's a lot of people speculating about how much money each party will have in its like when you have a ministry from a party, we'll have like a little bit of an estimative of how much money each party has on the public budget. So like people were a little bit speculating about how much money would go to each party, and they used our tool without they didn't ask us to use the tool. Like they search on they already knew it. They looked for the information they wanted, and they publish a report on this newspaper showing our data and referring to us, but without asking us anything. So today was maybe not the first time, but one of the it is not really usual. Like we are really becoming, without making a lot of efforts on that, we are really becoming a reference of data in public budget. So people is using it to show other people some new information. So they are using it to make analysis. So this is like our main objective here, to create something that will help people make an analysis about it. So today it just happened. We were really happy about it because it is contributing to social debate here in Brazil.
Okay, wow, this is really a great case, and I hope you will have more and more of those. I think other ambassadors also can learn from your approach of visualizing the open budget, because I think the tools you showed are really insightful, and the data visualization approach you used is also quite well thought. I hope I will share this recording. Will be shared with other ambassadors. I hope to continue discussion about it and to build on top of your experience for better open data visualization project in the future. So thank you very much. I see you have exchanged your emails. I'm looking forward for joint investigation
Yes.
from Latin America. So thank you very much, guys, and have a great day.
Great. Thank you a lot for the opportunity, Nika. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.